So let me go ahead and introduce the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, well, we will have an afternoon in a minute. Welcome to Rockford University Brown Bag Seminar. And I would like to start again by thanking to Rockford University, the philanthropy and alumni engagement, and everyone who joins us today. Thank you for supporting the series and attending it. Brown Bag series are organized by Professor Marilyn Loyola and myself. Today's speaker is Professor Ann Bow. Professor Bow is the department chair and assistant professor of kinesiology. She is now starting her 11th year at Rockford University. She grew up in Seattle, Washington, and moved to the Midwest in 1997. She received undergraduate and graduate degrees from Seattle Pacific University with concentrations in physical education, health and nutrition, and exercise science. She is passionate about health, wellness, and love to talk about making the best nutritional choices for a healthy lifestyle. Please join me in welcoming Professor Bow. Professor Bow, the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. At the list of people joining is great. I'm glad that so many people are interested in this topic, but especially in today's world, it's really important to eat correctly and eat well, but also to know that you do have choices out there, and just because something says that it's healthy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And so being able to make good choices when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the market, and just knowing about your nutrition. So if everybody's ready, I'll get started. Before I get started though, if you have any questions, please feel free throughout the presentation to ask them. I do have a section at the end for summary and questions, but if you find something that you want to ask a question about, please do so. I'm going to have some people keeping track of the chat, but just speak up and ask me your question as I'm going along, and hopefully I can answer it for you. So I'm going to start out with just the basics, starting about basic nutrients, nutrition. So we have the macronutrients, which are the main nutrients that we need for nutrition, which are the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and then also water is considered a macronutrient. And within the macronutrients, we have micronutrients, which are the vitamins and the minerals. And so those are embedded into the macronutrients. And then water is an essential nutrient. It hasn't always been on the list, but it is essential for our health. And so it's considered a macronutrient. And so all those things should be in our diets on a regular basis, and various portions of so and so on. I'm going to be talking a little later on about fad diets, and there's diets that say no carbs, all fats, all proteins, all carbs, and so on. And but we should have all these nutrients in our diet every day to have a healthy lifestyle. I'll go back real quick. If you cannot get all these things, especially the vitamins and minerals in your diet, you may need to supplement with various supplements, but when we get to the vitamins and the minerals, I'll talk a little bit about supplementation and what's healthy and what's not so healthy. Okay, so for carbohydrates, we've always heard, if you want to lose weight, cut out the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are bad for us. And that's not necessarily true. It's just that you need to make sure that you don't eat more carbohydrates than your body can burn off. And so when you're looking at carbohydrates, you're looking at grains and legumes, some vegetables. You always want to go with whole grains, things that haven't been processed, things that haven't been broken down too much. You want fiber-rich foods. And when we talk about cholesterol, I'll explain why the fiber is so important. But you want to have whole ingredients. When you're looking on packaging, have things that have single ingredients in them that not have a lot of artificial ingredients and so on. Things that have had their fiber stripped from them. White bread is very, very processed. A lot of people enjoy it because it's soft and it tastes good, but it really gives you not a whole lot of nutritional value. Sodas taste really good, but they have a lot of sugar, which breaks down and which are carbohydrates, and they break down into fats if not used up. And so it's not a good idea to drink a lot of sodas. It's not a good idea to have foods that have been highly processed. You want things that have not been tampered with too much. And so also, if you're choosing between wanting a potato in your diet, a sweet potato or a yam, as opposed to a Yukon Gold would be the better choice for you because it's higher in nutrients and also it doesn't have as many carbohydrates to break down. For proteins, they provide energy and support your mood and your cognitive function. They help in developing your muscles. And there are a lot of things that have protein in them. It's important to pick things that are healthy for your diet. Hot dogs, sausage, bacon, things like that have protein in them, but they have a lot of nitrates, a lot of salt, and so they can increase your blood pressure, they can increase your water retention, and they're not heart healthy. So you want to go with something that's heart healthy, such as fish, especially fish that are high in omega-3s, like salmon, tuna, and also beans, legumes, lean meats are really good protein. When we're looking at choosing, say, a steak, if you want to eat a steak, and a lot of times they say you have to cut out red meat completely out of your diet if you want to be healthy. You can eat red meat on occasion, but if you're looking at like a ribeye or a porterhouse or a T-bone, there's lots of marbling in there, lots of fat in there that makes it taste really, really good, but that fat can be a problem with your heart. And so you want to go with lean cuts. You want to go with strip steak or something that is very lean. If you're using hamburger, you want to go with the leanest cut or leanest amount of hamburger that you have. So there goes from like 60% to 90% lean, and you want to go with it as lean as possible. With for those of you that are vegan or vegetarian, I'm sorry, someone's trying to get in. Then you have a hard time getting the protein in your diet because a lot of the protein comes from meats. And so you want to go with nuts and beans. Is everything okay, Orion? Okay. And to add into your diet. And peanut butter is a really good protein. If you get natural peanut butter that isn't hydrogenated, that's a really good source of protein. So you can get protein in your diet if you're vegan or vegetarian. You just have to look around and be a little bit more careful with what you pick. Fats are something that you always want. You want to veer away from. You don't want fats in your diet, but you have to have some fat in your diet for healthy hair, for your organs to be healthy, for your nails and so on, and your skin to be healthy. If you don't have fat in your diet, then you're not going to be healthy. You can get fats in your diet. You can get good fats and there are bad fats. Bad fats are those that are hydrogenated, that are have many like polysaturated, not monosaturated. The things that are, when they're at room temperature, they're congealed, they're in a hard form, like margarine, Crisco, lard, those type of things. If they're at room temperature, if they're solid, then that's what's going to, they're going to be solid in your arteries and cause heart problems. So things like avocados are really good as far as good fats. Nuts are really good for as a source of protein and a source of fats. Peanut butter, you can get the peanut butter that's natural, that separates. You can see the oil on top, and then you mix it together. That if you get that type, you can get some without a lot of sugar in it as well. And so that is something that is a healthy choice for you. Also for omega-3s, you can get that in fish and so on, but you can also get that in pill form. You want, when you get omega-3s, you want to get a plant-based omega-3 rather than the fish oils, because the fish oils can go rancid very quickly, and then they're no good for your body. The plant-based, it kind of cuts out the middleman. It uses gets the omegas from the algae that the fish would eat, and it's it stays good, and it's a very good source of omega-3s. And when we're talking about oils, you want to, like olive oils and grapeseed oil and avocado oils are really good for cooking with. But you need to be careful with olive oil. Olive oil has a very low flash point, which means that it starts to break down. It starts to smoke at a really low temperature or a fairly low temperature. And once that happens, it becomes toxic. So you don't, if you're going to be using oils for cooking, I don't know if you can see this very well, but can't really see it. Grapeseed oil is really good. Avocado oil is very good for cooking. You can use the olive oil to mix into your foods or for salad dressings. It's really healthy oil, but it's not a great oil for cooking because when it starts to break down, then it's no longer good for you. Vitamins and minerals are things that you'll find in your foods, and you want to find vitamin-rich foods. If you are eating vegetables and fruits, you're going to get lots of really healthy vegetables. Vitamin D is a vitamin you can get in foods, but it's also something that you can get from the sun. And when the vitamin D is a vitamin that helps you absorb calcium. And so especially for older women after menopause, worried about osteoporosis, getting lots of vitamin D, or if they do supplement their calcium, getting calcium that has vitamin D in it, so that their bones will absorb it. The only vitamin that your body will create or manufacture on its own is vitamin K. The rest has to be ingested. It has to get into your body in some form or another. And so the best way to get your vitamins and your minerals, as I said, is to get it through food that you're eating. If you have to supplement, then you want to make sure that you're getting supplements from a reputable manufacturer, because the FDA doesn't really regulate supplements. And so they could have just a portion of what you need, or have too much of one thing. With vitamins and minerals, there are soluble, fat soluble and water soluble. If you have a water soluble vitamin or mineral, then it gets washed out of your body. If it's fat soluble, it gets stored in the fat and in your body. And if you have too much of one thing or another, then it will build up a toxicity. I don't know if any of you have ever remember the QT tanning lotion that people used. It was a sunless tanning lotion, and it turned your skin orange. And if you have too much beta carotene in carrots or in foods that have a lot of orange pigment, then that can happen in your body, because beta carotene is a fat soluble mineral, and so it will it builds up a toxicity. If people who drink lots of carrot juice because carrot juice is good for you, then it can cause the same problem. There are some supplements out there that are actually have a food label, and if they have a food label, that means that they're regulated by the FDA and they're actual food. They're not. So you know exactly what you're putting into your body. And so this, I don't know if you can see that very well with, but this particular supplement has a food label, so you know that you're getting real food. You just have to be careful about what you choose and do your research before you start using supplements. And if at all possible, get your vitamins and minerals from the food that you ingest.
And I have a question. Actually, a question came in on the chat from Jason. He asks if he or we can get enough vitamin D from the sun.
If you live in an area that is sunny, a lot of the time you can, but you generally have to ingest it with your food, or in order to get enough in your body. But if you live in Florida or California, then yes, you could get enough vitamin D from the sun to reach your RDA, your recommended daily allowance. Does that answer it for you, Jason?
Yes.
If you live in Alaska, you may need to supplement, but if you live in Florida or California, then you can probably get enough from the sunshine.
Thank you.
That's a better way to
live in Illinois.
You may need to supplement. because it's not, well, in the summertime, not so much, but in the wintertime, it's a lot of gray days. And a lot of foods like milk and orange juice have, because of the calcium in them, they have vitamin D added, and so it helps the body to absorb. But it's, as I said, it's best to get it naturally, but in some instances you have to supplement.
I had read somewhere that if you expose your forearms to the sun for about 20 minutes, that's a good daily dose of vitamin D. I don't know if that's the case, but.
And you make sure that you're wearing your sunscreen so you can screen out the UV, but get the vitamin D in when you're doing that. Yeah, that's a good measurement of the time. For me, I get plenty.
It's not snowing, Marilyn.
Pardon?
I said, make sure that it's not snowing, Marilyn.
I'll try. Thanks.
Well, sometimes it's snowing and sunny at the same time. You never know. But for me, it's not a problem because I love to be outside in the sunshine. But for some people who don't enjoy the outdoors as much, they may need to supplement some. Any other questions about that? Okay. Talking about water. Water. Go ahead.
So Anissa is asking, health clubs are promoting red light therapy for vitamin D. Is this a suitable substitute?
It's an expensive substitute, and it helps. It also helps in tissue, depending on the wavelength, and there's a lot of things involved in red light therapy, and there's different kinds of red light therapy. So you need to make sure that you're getting the correct. But yes, it helps with tissue regeneration, and it is a source of vitamin D. It's probably not as good as direct sunlight, but direct sunlight can cause skin damage too if you're not protected. So it is depending on, as I said, the wavelength and the format of the red light, it can be a good source of vitamin D.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay. When we talk about water, water is, you can get it from the tap. We have well water, we have city water. If you're in Flint, Michigan, you may not want to drink the water out of the tap, but drink from bottled water. But water is very, very essential in our diet. And for men and women, drinking between 2.5 to 3.5 liters of water a day is very essential. It sounds like a lot, and when you get started on drinking the water, you feel like you're floating because you're drinking so much. But it's essential, especially if you live in hot, humid climates, or if you're very active, then you need to make sure that you replace your water on a regular basis. If you are very active, especially in hot, humid, in the summer in Illinois, if you're out gardening or out being active, if you're going to be going out, make sure that you weigh yourself before you go, and then weigh yourself when you come back in. And any change in your weight, you need to replace with water, because any weight loss that you have had will be due to dehydration. There are lots of different waters out there. There's very expensive waters. There to the cheaper waters. Like you can see in this picture, kind of the smart water. Smart water has electrolytes added in. There are pH balanced waters. Water, just drinking water is really good. If you drink a lot of water and you feel like it's flushing your body out, you may want to put in electrolyte replacement, because if you drink a lot of water, especially if you're not used to it, it can take the electrolytes out of your system, which can wreak havoc with heart rhythms and cramping of muscles and so on. But if you put a water filter on your home tap, that's sufficient to give you healthy water. You don't necessarily have to buy bottled water, but water is very essential. Drinking tea, drinking coffee, drinking sodas, that's putting liquids into your body, but it's not necessarily rehydrating you, especially if it's something that's caffeinated, that's going to dehydrate you. So coffee, if you say, oh, I don't like water, but I drink lots of coffee, so I should be getting enough fluid, that's not the case, because caffeine will dehydrate you. So the best way to hydrate your body is with actual water. Okay, now we have the fun part of reading nutrition labels. When you go out into the market, especially now, there are all kinds of products. You look at a shelf of just salt or crackers or anything like that. There's lots of things to choose from. It's really important to know how to read a nutrition label, though. A lot of you know how to, but some you may not know. And so we're going to go through a nutrition label and talk about the important parts of reading a nutrition label. First thing you want to look at, not looking at calories, not looking at serving sizes, you want to look at the ingredients in there. And if the first 3 ingredients that you look at need to be real food, it needs to be like whole grains, and not sugar, not additives. And also the shorter the list of ingredients, the better the food is for you, because if it has lots of ingredients, especially ingredients you can't pronounce, that will let you know that it's probably not the healthiest thing for you. And so when you're looking, you want to avoid anything that has a toast in it, fructose, maltose, that's a form of sugar. And so if that was one of the first 3 things in the list of food, then you want to make sure that you go on to something else, because it's going to be high in sugar. When looking at a nutrition label, I'm going to go through this one here on screen. First of all, you look at it, it says 230 calories. Well, that's not so bad. 230 calories is not a big deal. But then you look up and it says 8 servings per container. So if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, if you eat the entire container, you're eating your entire nutritional calorie count with one item. And so some things, like if you look at Haagen-Dazs ice cream or one of those little pints of Ben and Jerry's, it'll say 150 calories, but then you look up, it says 15 servings per container. And so you need to be able to get something that has low calories, but also that doesn't have a whole lot of servings in it, in order to get something that's healthy for you. And also look at the serving size, because the serving size, in this case, it's 2/3 of a cup, but reading that. Then when you go down the nutrition label, you look at the fats, and you want to make sure that there aren't a lot of saturated fats. Oops, my light just went out here. 1 second.
Does anybody know who determines this number of servings? Like it says 8 servings, but it might be 16 or it might be 4. So who determines? So Anne,
Yes.
I'm not sure if you know it, but like, do you know who determines this number of servings? For example, it says 8 here. It might well be 16 or 4. So who says like 8 is enough for this package?
I believe it's the manufacturer. They decide, but they also look at the other ingredients and what it falls on, like the RDA, the recommended daily allowance for that particular item. And so there is some science involved in it, but a lot of packaging, and I'll be talking about this a little bit later too, a lot of packaging is set for you to buy it because it looks good, but it's not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you make this 16 servings, for example, the calories would be 115, which would look better. If you make it like 32 servings, then it will be just like go down and down. And so that should be a kind of logic there, but I don't know.
But that's the whole point. The point is that they say, if you take a 2/3 cup serving size, it's going to be 230 calories. And if you make your serving size that size, then there will be 8 of them in the container. So it's not that they're deciding, oh, you can only have 8 servings. They're just giving you a gauge to say, oh, and a reasonable serving is 2/3 of a cup. And this is how many calories, and this is how many of those size servings there are in the container.
Thank you.
With the ice cream that I was talking about, nobody that I know of can get 15 servings out of a little pint of ice cream. But once you get started, it's hard to do that. But if they decide that the serving is 2 tablespoons, then you will get the 15 servings out of it. So you just have to look at all the factors when you're purchasing something.
And one of the reasons they put in this servings per container and calories per serving, that isn't the way the labels used to be. Anne, I'm sure remembers, and some of us that are older, when they started doing labeling, they would just say there's this many calories in this package or whatever. And so you never had a gauge of how much calories were in any given size serving. And that's why they started doing it that way.
Yeah, each year, every 5 years, I believe the government refines its guidelines as far as nutrition, and it's become more clear as to what you're putting in your body and what you're buying when you're buying products. And so it's, even though some of the labeling on packages, the wording and so on can be deceiving, being educated and looking at the nutrition labels will help you to eat a better diet. And I was talking about the fats. When you look down on the fats, you want to make sure that the saturated fats, those that will clog up your arteries and so on, will be low. Trans fats are kind of a buzzword. A lot of things wouldn't normally have trans fats in them. Those are the ones that are extremely hydrogenated, the ones that are extremely bad for heart disease and so on. But this particular, I'm not sure what this is for, this particular nutrition label is for. It's just a nutrition label, but it may be that it didn't have trans fats in it to begin with, but because people are looking for 0 trans fats or low trans fats, they're going to put that in the label so that people will want to buy their product. And then looking at cholesterol is, on this particular one, is 0 milligrams. That may be that the food itself has 0 milligrams, but the fats in there, it's only 1 gram of fat, so that's not too bad. But if the fat content is high, then it can cause high cholesterol, even though there's no added cholesterol to this particular item. And then you're looking at the sodium. You want to make sure that it doesn't have a lot of sodium, and you look at 2 products side by side, and there'll be a huge difference in the sodium content. And so you always want to choose something that has the least amount of added sodium possible, because sodium could cause high blood pressure and a lot of heart problems. And so we want to keep the sodium level down. And then it talks about the carbohydrates. And with carbohydrates, I should have talked about this when we talked about the carbohydrates, but the amount of carbohydrates that you consume, as I said, they're not evil things. It's just that those carbohydrates that aren't used for energy will be converted into fat in the liver. And so you want to make sure that the amount of carbohydrates you're consuming will be used up with energy. Those of you that are science people know about the Krebs cycle. The carbohydrates are broken down to glycogen and glucose, and then it's made into ATP, which is used to fuel our muscles. But it's carbohydrates are generally used up with aerobic, meaning longer duration activities, things that will need oxygen in order to accomplish. So marathon runners and Ironman will do carbo loading the night before a race or an event in order to build up the glycogen stores in their muscles. But those of us that are weekend warriors and watch football on TV, you don't want to eat a lot of carbohydrates, because you're not going to be, the most activity you're going to be doing is watching rather than participating in the activity. So you want to keep the carbohydrates low if you're not going to be very active. And then they will show the vitamin content. This has vitamin D added to it, and it's 10% of the RDA, the recommended daily allowance. You need to understand that with nutrition labels are based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Not everybody has a 2,000 calorie diet. If you're an athlete, you may have a 3,500 to 4,000 calorie diet. If you are not very active and trying to lose weight, you may have a 100-calorie diet. So you need to make adjustments in the numbers depending on the amount of calories you have in your diet. Any questions about that?
And as an example, I mean, I will illustrate my question. So look at the fat, please. So is saturated fat part of total fat? I'm sorry, maybe it's a stupid question.
Total fat would be saturated, polysaturated, unsaturated, and the trans fats. If there were trans fats in there, that would be included in the total fat. So
no, I mean, in general, those indented items, for example, look at the carbohydrates. So there's a bold title and there's some indented sub-items.
Mhm.
So are they saturated and trans, for example, are they part of total fat? In
yes,
carbohydrates, it can't be, I think. Like dietary fiber can't be because it's more than 13%. So dietary fiber says 14%, but total carbohydrates says 13%. It's a very numerical question, but
well, if you look at, so dietary fiber is 14%, and then
so is dietary fiber part of total carbohydrates? It can't be, right?
no, it's what breaks away, and it's the carbohydrates are broken down, and the fiber is broken away, and then the sugars are broken down to make glycogen. So does that?
But if you add like dietary fibers, total sugars, and added sugars, they don't add up to 13%. They are more than 13%.
Yes.
Maybe I'm missing something.
No, it's looking at total calories. The percentages are for total or the percent of your daily value. So the total carbohydrates in this particular product are 13% of your daily value, your daily required value. The fibers that are in the carbohydrates, the dietary fiber, are 14% of the amount of fiber that's in this particular is 14% of what you require per day. And then the sugars, the amount of sugars that are in this particular product are 20% of what is required daily. But the total carbohydrates are 13%. It's a little hard to break down, but it's the number, the 14 and the 20 and the 13% are the the fibers or the sugars in the item, and it's the percentage of the daily value. Just, am I making sense, or am I making everybody confused? You look confused, or hand?
Yeah, forget about it. No, that's fine.
Okay.
No, I think it makes sense, because the stuff on the right, it's not saying that it's 13% of the total product. It's saying it's 13% of our daily value in a 2,000 calorie diet, right?
Yes.
And then whereas the grams on the left that are attached to each item, do like the 4 grams and the 12 grams and the 10 grams, that is a part of the 37 grams in total carbohydrates. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Does that make sense, Orhan? So they're actually 2 separate scales.
Well, no, I mean, if you add the grams, that's fine. But if you add the percentages, they don't add up to 13%.
Right, because they're not this. It's not a part of the 13%. It's a part of the daily value.
That was my question. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Meryl. Don't mean to be confusing. Any other questions about that? Okay. Now we get to cholesterol, and where I said the fiber helps to clear out our arteries and so on of cholesterol, and so we want to have a high fiber diet. And HDL is high density lipoproteins, which are the considered good proteins, or cholesterol. LDL is low density, and that's bad. And then what used to not be involved or included in our total cholesterol is triglycerides, which is a waxy substance that builds up inside the artery walls. And so all those combined together should be 200 or less for good cholesterol. If your LDL is higher than your HDL, then that is considered high cholesterol. Also, if you have anything over 200, it's considered high cholesterol. And trying to move everybody up so I can see what I wrote. So it's cholesterol is carried through your blood, and it's attached to lipoproteins, so fat proteins. And so that's where the high density and low density comes into play. So high density are, as I said, is the good cholesterol, and you want more of that in your system or in your panel than the LDL. And let's see what else I wanted to talk about. The HDL picks up excess cholesterol and then it takes it back to your liver to be filtered out. The low density is transported on particles, and it goes throughout your body and attaches to the walls of your arteries and so on. And that can cause narrowing, it can cause hardening, and it can because of the hardening, it can cause an increase in your blood pressure. It can cause heart issues. Eventually it can cause stroke. And so you want to avoid a buildup of cholesterol in your arteries. And eating a high fiber diet will help to bring that down, and also keeping sugars low and fats low in your diet, or the wrong kind of fats low in your diet, will help to decrease your cholesterol level. So a normal cholesterol, as I said, is 200 or below, and you want to make sure that your LDL is lower than your HDL. Any questions about that? Okay, now we're talking about beverages. And those of you that are students out there, you probably consumed a few of these energy beverages while you were studying for your midterms and getting papers done and so on. They're very high in caffeine, very high in sugar, and so they give you a jolt, but that because they're very high in caffeine and very high in sugar, they are not the best for you, especially, and all of them are a little bit different. Some are worse than others, but you want to make sure that you don't consume more than one of these a day, and hopefully not even that. There have been young people who should not have any kind of heart issues whatsoever, who have had heart attacks, strokes, and even died from having drinking too many energy drinks, because it increases your heart rate, increases the caffeine, increases your adrenaline, and it can cause problems. And so they serve a purpose and they taste really good, but they shouldn't be something that is a consistent addition to your beverage diet, because they can cause harm if you have too many of them. Sodas, all of us have enjoyed a soda from time to time. The carbonation is fun, but sodas have a lot of sugar in them. Mountain Dew is probably the worst offender. It has almost 20 teaspoons of in a 20-ounce bottle, and some people eat or drink a whole 2 liter of Mountain Dew or pop, and some have several 20-ounce sodas a day, and so that's a lot of sugar being put into your body, and so those are unhealthy. But then also diet sodas aren't healthy either, because the artificial sweetener that they're put in there tricks your body and your brain into thinking that it's receiving sugar, so it will release insulin, just like it would if you had consumed sugar, and then your body can become insulin resistant, which will lead to diabetes. And so there are some sweeteners out there that are plant-based and natural, like stevia and truvia are sweeteners that are plant-based, and there are some sodas out there that have those sweeteners in them, and so those are healthier for you than drinking the ones with like something with NutraSweet in it, or with aspartame, something like that. And the NutraSweet, in fact, has been shown to, if someone consumes a lot of NutraSweet, then it can bring on epileptic seizures. And so if that's the case, then you know that consuming that is not terribly good for the brain. And so you need to be careful about what you're consuming. Did you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you just repeat what you said about the diet soda in comparison to the regular soda, and what is it doing to your body? Because I have a number of people who say, oh, well, I can do diet soda, and What's the ingredient and what is it doing to your body?
The
Please.
artificial sweetener that is put in, whether it's aspartame or NutraSweet or what's the S one? Splenda. That's in Splenda. Your body, it tricks your brain into thinking that you're actually getting sugar put in your body, and so it will trigger the insulin to be released from your pancreas, just like sugar would, and so you can actually gain weight by drinking diet sodas because your body is thinking it's getting sugar, and then it actually leads faster to insulin resistance than if you drank sugared sodas.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So go ahead.
I don't know, I see continue, but I don't know if you're going to protein drinks. I just want to know your thoughts about protein beverages as well.
Well, I have the electrolyte replacement like Gatorade for the next one, but protein, you need to be careful about what kind of protein is in there, and if there's a creatine included in the protein drinks, because the creatine, if you don't drink enough of water to stay hydrated, it can cause problems with your heart, with your liver, and your kidneys. And so protein drinks, if they're like a plant-based, are okay, but just in moderation. And you have to, just like any other, like the supplements and that type of thing, you need to make sure that whoever's manufacturing it is a reputable manufacturer, because some of the protein powders and so on are put together in somebody's garage and sent out. And so you need to make sure that it's a reputable manufacturer that you've researched in order to make sure that what you're eating is safe, because some of the protein powders and drinks that are out there have things added to them that are bad for you, but they're not, that since there's no need to put a label on there, then the people don't know. And I think Abby, we talked about this, was it the addition of things that are banned actually in sports. They add those into the protein drinks, and people who, they get disqualified from sporting events because they didn't know that they were consuming those products. And so they're okay to use if you use them wisely, and you make sure that you know who's producing them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the Gatorade is something that was developed in Florida because the Florida Gators, the football team, was having a really hard time with fatigue and muscle cramping and so on. Because if you've been to Florida, you know it's very hot, humid environment. And so they came up with an electrolyte replacement beverage, and it works really well for that purpose. It's not meant, protein or sports drinks are not meant to be consumed on just a daily basis if you're not going to need electrolyte replacement. Too much of certain electrolytes, potassium and magnesium, can cause heart arrhythmias. And it can cause a variety of it can make your body mimic having a heart attack. It can increase your blood pressure and so on. And so if you need the electrolyte replacement, if you've had the flu, if you have gone through the prep for a colonoscopy, which is really fun, or if you've been outside in hot, humid weather, or been exercising a lot, the Gatorade is really good for replacing your electrolytes, but it's not something that you want to have as your regular beverage of choice, because it's high in sugar, and the electrolytes can cause havoc with your electrical system and cause problems. I know that it's a very popular beverage, especially with athletes, but it only should be consumed if you need your electrolytes replaced. When you're talking about portion control, the US government has come out with My Plate and with instructions on nutritional guidelines. And actually they just came out with new guidelines in 2020. And so anything that you find on the government site will be the most recent information. My plate is something that illustrates how your plate should be portioned out with your fruits, grains, proteins, vegetables, and so on. It's a way of teaching children, but also it's a good visual for anybody to see how your portions should be. If you're having protein, it shouldn't be more than a bigger size than the palm of your hand. The fats should be your thumb. That's as much fats as you should have. And so that's a good visual for you to know how you should separate out your plate. You should have a variety of fruits. Some people shy away from fruits because they have sugar in them, but it's natural sugar. It's going to be processed by the body much more easily. And so fruits are good to add into your diet. Vegetables, you want to have a variety of different colored vegetables because of the iron and the vitamins and so on that are in them. Fresh vegetables are best, but that's not always practical. You can't, if you live far away from a grocery store, if you're busy, you can't always get fresh fruit or fresh vegetables all the time. Canned vegetables have been highly cooked. They're full of sodium. They're not really good for you. If you're going to go with something that's not fresh, you want to go with frozen that has been flash frozen. So it's taken right from the vine, right from the garden and flash frozen, which will keep the vitamins in them and the nutrients in them. When you're cooking fresh or any kind of vegetables, you want to make sure you steam them rather than boil them, because the steaming will heat them up without leaching out the nutrients out of them. For your proteins, we talked about the different proteins that are good for you to have in your diet, and that will include eggs and if for vegetarians, that some vegetarians eat eggs, others don't, but you can get proteins in a variety of ways, as I talked about. And then you want to have dairy in your diet. Some people are lactose intolerant, so they can get their dairy portion with things, nut milks, soy, and that type of thing, if they're not allergic to soy. When you're looking at the grains, you want to make sure that they're as whole as possible. And so multi-grain bread rather than white bread, or even whole wheat bread that if you can't see seeds or grains in there, then you should probably not eat that. You want something that is high in fiber. You can get whole wheat pasta rather than regular pasta, which has been refined quite a bit. So you can find different ways of getting the grains that are good for you. And so if you go on the government site, you will be able to see things like this and see the portion sizes with the My Plate program. Now, this is something that we've all seen throughout our life through nutrition classes and so on, is the food pyramid, and it's changed throughout time. In fact, it's changed now. It used to only have 4 sections, and now it has more, and has the fats at the top. The fats that they have on there are not the best fats that you'd want to have in your body, the pizzas and fries and so on. You do want to add fats, but not those type of fats. And also the newest food pyramid also adds physical activity into the picture, so that you know that that's just as important as eating healthy, is to include physical activity. For adults, it's 150 minutes per week. For kids, 60 minutes a day. And it's very important to add the physical activity. It helps not only heart health and so on, but it helps your body absorb the food that you're eating, and it just adds to your overall health. So as you can see on this food pyramid, that shows some of the healthier things that you can have in the different categories: the grains, the fruits, vegetables, the proteins, the dairy, and the fats. If I were making this food pyramid, I would reduce the top part just a little bit more and picture fats that are better for you: olives, avocados, and that type of thing that are more heart healthy than the trans fats that would be in like the pizzas and popcorn and that type of stuff, especially the popcorn at the movie theater. When we can finally go back to the movie theater, that's very hydrogenated and it's very, not real good for you. So, but that's one of the newer pictures of the food pyramid. Okay, fad diets. There's a lot of diets out there. These are the ones that are most known. Atkins, high protein, low carb. South Beach, zone diet, intermittent fasting, low carb. Keto and paleo are kind of similar. Paleo comes from going back to our ancestors and eating like the cavemen did with lots of protein and wild vegetables and fruit and so on. Keto is high fat diet, not necessarily bad fats, but high fat. And that can be very dangerous for people who have colon issues or cholesterol issues. And so all these things you need to look at and determine whether they would be harmful. The Atkins diet is high protein. So if you follow it without looking at all the aspects, you could get kidney problems from that. There are all kinds, as the grapefruit diet, the soup diet, the ice cream diet, and MetaFast is a liquid diet, which is very, very effective while you're doing it. But as soon as you stop doing it, then you're going to gain weight again, because your body's not really meant just to have a liquid diet. So the best thing to remember is everything in moderation. Calories in, calories out. You can't really change physics. Physics is physics. And so no matter what diet you choose, it's generally you're reducing calories and increasing physical activity. And it doesn't matter what combination of the calories that you're doing, it's reducing calories and increasing physical activity for losing weight. And so it may be a way of motivating you to follow something, but if you, as I said, if you do all things in moderation and do the portions that are shown on the My Plate, using whole foods and foods that aren't processed very much, then you will have a healthy diet and you will have a healthy lifestyle. So any more questions or anything that you'd like to add from that? Have I gone over time? I'm sorry if I did.
Can take a couple of questions before 1 p.m.
Okay. Any more questions about what I said? Any things you heard differently that I could talk about?
And do I need to stop taking gummy vitamins? Because I really enjoy them. And they seem to sit better, but I think they're terrible for me.
Well, as I said, it depends on the manufacturer and where you're getting them from. There are manufacturers out there that have, I'm sorry that my light went out again. Can you see me? Like a ghost stories. There are manufacturers out there that have them that are from real food, real fruits and vegetables. And so I will talk to you separately. I can let you know about some of the manufacturers. I'm not here to promote one manufacturer over another, but there are some out there that are healthy.
Let us know too, Marilyn.
That helps. I will.
And they have gummies too, not just capsules. So they have gummies. So I'll let you know about those. But a lot of times there's high like mercury in them, then the gelatin, depending on what they use for the gelatin, people who are vegetarian will not want to take that, because gelatin is made from ground cow bones and things, and so you don't want to eat those if you're a vegetarian or vegan.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Well,
okay.
Thanks everybody for, there was quite a few people on the list, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for
Yeah.
it was valuable. Thank you. Have a great day.